I'm going to tell the company that hired me, oh, we're skipping the photo shoot. Why? Because Adobe told me I didn't need to do it. Hello everyone, my name's Josh and welcome to another video. Today I just want to talk briefly about Adobe, once again hating on photographers. In a recently launched in-program ad in Photoshop, Adobe is declaring that you can skip the photo shoot with their new AI tools. Now this has rubbed a lot of photographers online the wrong way. There has been a lot of negative posts and some articles written about this new ad. But before we discuss the implications of what Adobe is saying here, I want to go back just a little bit. Over the last few years, Adobe and many other companies have been leaning extremely hard into the development and the implementation of AI tools in their software programs. Because of this, the Adobe suite and Photoshop in particular have seen some tremendous leaps in what the software is capable of doing with AI. One of Photoshop's most popular AI adjacent tools, Content Aware Fill, allows you to repair, replace, and expand several different aspects of the image if it was shot in a way you didn't like it. So if you wanted to add something, remove, take it away, Content Aware Fill allows you to manipulate an image like never before. And this is just one example of the many different tools that Adobe has been rolling out over the last few years to give creatives that use the software suite some more control over their final product. Because as artists, the people who use the Adobe suite like to be able to fine-tune their art and create good work with the tools that they pay so much to use. So you can imagine that the artists, the people who make the art, the photographers, the graphic designers, the people who use Adobe programs and pay so much for them on an annual basis, you can imagine that they are not all that thrilled when the program that they're using suggests that it's just flat out going to eliminate part of their practice. And while that statement, skip the photo shoot, isn't the most tactfully worded, it represents an ideological divide between the software developer and the people who use it. It seems like more and more the company developing the software that the artists rely on to create their art and express their creativity, that company is more focused on streamlining the processes for businesses and making art, perhaps a more generic and slightly more soulless version of it, achievable by just a regular person, by simply typing words into a box. Now I'm simplifying things, but that has largely been the position of Adobe over this AI era of the last few years. But this ad saying that you can skip the photo shoot is not the first time that Adobe's talked about replacing a part of the creative process. In fact, just a couple days ago, Adobe's Chief Strategy Officer and Executive Vice President of Design and Emerging Products, Scott Belsky, said when referring to his product stack, "This is a revolution. This is the new digital camera, and we have to embrace it." And what he's referring to is that through Photoshop and now many other programs, you can simply just create images. You don't have to take photos anymore. And this simple fact has had a lot of people in the creative industry worried, particularly people who make money on stock photography, because if you're familiar with the stock photography model, you supply a lot of images to a site like Shutterstock, and then the client purchases the images for use commercially or editorially. Well, if you can just generate the images with none of the effort of taking them, and Shutterstock as a platform accepts them or even promotes them over standard photography because of the better margins, then you could really be in trouble as a creative. That's just one example of how these new AI tools in Adobe's products threaten some of the traditional earning models of creatives. But I can't blame Adobe for threatening the stock photography market. There are many other companies who are pushing a similar model, and it's clear that the industry has to adapt to this new flood of AI imagery and soon video. But I'm not done talking about Adobe and their replacement of the digital camera. In fact, as far back as 2020, the company had been suggesting that Photoshop could be a viable replacement for taking photos with a camera. And throughout the 4 years since then, Adobe's new Firefly Image 3 model has only gotten better and better. In fact, as I use some of the tools now in Photoshop, I can hardly remember a time where I didn't rely in some way, shape, or form on the AI tools given to me in this program. They're very powerful and oftentimes very convenient. So I understand that these tools do have a place in my tool bag as a creative, and I don't want to be a hypocrite because I use them as part of my work. The issue for me, and a lot of the outcry that I've seen online, stems from Adobe's positioning that these new tools could potentially replace a creative job. I saw one quote from a photographer online that said, "So glad as a photographer I've given Adobe tens of thousands of dollars only to have it pivot to selling skip the photo shoot." And I can't imagine as a full-time photographer how that might feel, but I don't think it feels good. If the program you rely on to deliver your product to your clients is communicating to you you that you might be out of a job, that's a bad situation to be in. And furthermore, it's tough to see that position coming from a company that was essentially founded by creatives. The people who built Photoshop and designed its initial photo editing software were in themselves artists or those who wanted to support artists. At some point in the company's history, they did have the creative in mind. Now, I'm not saying Adobe is anti-creative, but I can't help but feel a little worried when I see reports like this, where Adobe staff are worried that their AI tools could potentially kill the jobs of their own customers. And it just has me thinking, where are we going right now in our current direction? AI as a tool has given creatives incredible control over the art that they are able to create. But it seems like we're at the vanguard of some interesting decisions to be made by businesses. The way things are planning out, and kind of what I've seen in the industries currently, is that the creatives that lose their jobs to an AI process don't necessarily lose it in the traditional way where they get fired by the company and then the company brings that process in-house with someone non-versed in the art using an AI tool to make it themselves. I haven't seen that at a mass scale yet, but what I have seen is people losing their contracts with organizations in order for those companies to then turn around and hire someone who is offering services at a subsidized rate through the use of AI technology. And I want to be clear that despite the fact that I sympathize with the creative who potentially lost their job to someone who's using new technology to get an edge or potentially charge less, I want to also say that as creative individuals, if we want to be competitive in our market, it would also be in our best interest to explore some of these tools to see how we could potentially leverage them to continue creating art cheaper, better, or faster, if that's what you're into. But for this situation specifically, I think the root of the problem lies with Adobe's marketing and their position in relation to these new tools. I don't think this is going to surprise anyone when I reiterate that Adobe is responsible to its shareholders, and in order to increase profit, they have to pander a lot of the time to businesses who want to see things innovate, get cheaper, and become more accessible. In the past, Adobe worked closer with creatives, and I think some of the messaging that's coming out about how Photoshop is now a digital camera and you can skip the photo shoot is worded in a way to appease businesses looking at Adobe as an innovative stock. And as a creative who uses the software product, I don't think that position is wise because I think it alienates your core user base. Now, in many ways, it's also true. You can, in certain situations, skip the photo shoot with Photoshop. So, despite the fact that I don't like it, it does have some validity, and as a creative, I need to be aware of that. But as I personally navigate the new creative opportunities afforded to me by these software products, and same with all the other creatives out there, see where these products and these new tools fit into your workflow. As we adapt to these new tools, as we should, we need to know that we're supported by the programs that we rely on and that we pay a ton of money to use. And currently, I don't feel that way by what Adobe has been communicating over the last few months. So that is my take on some of the news coming out of Adobe and their communication with creatives on their software products and even by executives. Oftentimes these new innovations will come to the photo tools before the video tools. So I find that I feel all this pressure to change tools or to adapt a bit after the photographers, which kind of shields me a bit, but it lets me kind of watch how the photographers deal with it and how they adapt, and then make a decision on how I'm going to use new products as they come down the pipeline. So I'm very blessed in that way that I'm not hit with the immediate changes in the same way as photographers, but I do sympathize for people who are seeing these messages on Adobe's products and just feeling kind of like, what do you want from me? Like, what do you want me to do? I'm paying, $50, $60, $100 a month, depending on how big your subscription is. And you're telling me that I should just get, I don't know, I should just go. I should skip what I do. I'm going to tell the company that hired me, oh, we're skipping the photo shoot. Why? Because Adobe told me I didn't need to do it. I don't think that's the right decision, Adobe, but we'll see how things pan out. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate you very much. If you leave a comment, I'll read the comment. Bet. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.